Hello and welcome back to part 2 of my Ninja Turtles arcade main review slash playthrough of courses. At this point it's kind of a playthrough because I'm continuing here. Now this stage is a bit strange if you ask me, because it's like this road stage. There's a few like enemies that'll do drive-bys, like I think that was like 5 foot soldiers in a car. But the biggest thing I think is weird about this stage is that there is no end boss. And like, you know, when you play any kind of arcade game, you think, you know, you're going to face a stage. There's going to be some kind of end boss at the end, but you don't expect it to not have one. Whenever I see those guys and they're like, "Do not resist us," it of course I've probably made like numerous references in all my reviews here. It makes me think of the Borg, because they always said resistance is futile, and when they say "do not resist us," it just reminds me of that. And now this theme song playing in the background was always one of my favorites from both this game and the NES game. I always thought it was just a very cool, dynamic sounding song. And there's more of our good friends of the Foot Soldier gang. And another one of these guys. And I remember always being mad when they would do that thing where they throw the rope around you and electrocute you. It was always one of those things that made you really annoyed. And, of course, if you don't know anything about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, the way that the 4-player game was laid out was similar to other 4-player games like The Simpsons or Gauntlet or even Gauntlet Legends. Each set of controls, which this game only used 2 buttons and a joystick. One's attack and one is jump. Each controls had a different player on it, and if you pick, like, let's say control number 1, you'd be Leonardo. And no matter what you did, you were Leonardo, because Leonardo was on control 1. Similar in a way to, like, a game that I liked a lot that I just mentioned, Gauntlet Legends. I forget what number it was. It was either 2, it was either 3 or 4, but I was always the Archer, and I was always Green Archer. The cool part about Gauntlet Legends is that, unlike this, the only thing that was locked to the control set was not the actual character, but the color of the character, and also it was Green Archer. I can remember a time when kids in the arcade would be like, "No, he's Green Archer," and I always thought that was really cool. But I definitely love these dedicated 4-player games, especially when you're in an arcade location, or even if you have one of these at home, if you're so awesome that you have one of those, and you have a bunch of friends that'll come over your house and play some TMNT. Now, I remember when I was actually doing this gameplay, I was thinking to myself, how do I get any further? There's these spiky things. And it turns out you just have to actually wait till the foot soldiers jump out and you can actually attack them. And then the game just has you jump over it. And now I remember in the NES version that this part not only is very frustrating here, but it was very annoying in the arcade version. I mean, in the NES version, it was very annoying too, because although it looks like you have the same motion, since you're on the skateboard, you typically move a little bit slower than you would when you're on foot. And I remember in the NES version, defeating these helicopters was pretty easy, because all you have to do is the jump kick a few times and try not to get hit by the bullets, but in the arcade version here, it's really hard to actually hit the, it's very hard to hit the helicopters, so they just end up getting in the way. And now we have a few more varieties of foot soldiers. There's like different machine guns, because the ones who had the machine guns earlier had these like red machine guns. Now there's these weird green and blue ones. And now of course we have helicopters that are throwing bombs at me. Oh, and that's another foot soldier. I just honestly find this weird. They wave a green stick at you, and it shoots like the same little rings that Bebop's gun shot at us earlier. And I'm just thinking to myself, what is that stick, and where can I get one? Because they just like me weird. You just whip this weird green stick, start waving it around in a circle, and these circles just start flying and knocking people down. It's got to be one of the weirdest weapons anybody had ever thought of. I can remember in other Ninja Turtles games, they have like a similar stage to this where instead of being a skateboard, it's a surfboard, and somehow are just propelled over the water, which doesn't make any sense.
Gotta save Splinter.
And if you didn't notice that real quick, there was a bunch of Mousers and they were taking Splinter away, so now we have to save Splinter since April O'Neil was in my previous video here was saved from Bebop and Rocksteady, who had apparently kidnapped her, which, considering how like idiotic they were in the cartoon, you think to yourself, how could they possibly have got her? And that looked like another one of those guys having the sticks, but I think his stick was like what do you call it, gray. And you notice how I was mentioning before, I think it was in the other video actually, how those guys have the very long reach with their spears here, and they can also throw them at you. But the good part about when they throw it at you is they just become a regular foot soldier at that point. They're not nearly as hard. And with any of these beat-em-up games, I'm always very happy when you don't have all that many, when you have an emulator like this and you have unlimited quarters. And I will make a slight confession about the gameplay here. For some reason, when I use the newest version of Mame, I think it's like 148 or 147, on that version, when I tried to actually capture this with Hypercam and ran the emulator, it slowed it down awfully bad. So what I'm thinking is that it has something to do with how the game is rendered in the newer version. Like maybe the new render they rewrote just ends up using a lot more memory, so trying to run a capture software in the background didn't really cut it. I think this was in the much earlier version, which was like Mame 32FX. I think it was like 138 or 139, so at least a good 10 versions earlier than the current. And I thought that was really cool that the exploding barrel actually destroyed the robot thing, because as you can see, they take a ton of hits when you actually fight them, so it's good to be able to get a one-up on them. And now this is another thing that was very annoying, was these guns. And you'll see me here, I think to myself, maybe I take the foot soldier out, the guns will stop, but sadly they didn't. Tried to fight them so they wouldn't shoot my back when I go over this part. And now if you ever saw the cartoon, this is one of the rock soldiers from Dimension X. In other console and arcade games, they make a more prominent appearance where they're actually a enemy that you fight. But here, there's just two bosses with this one, and there'll be one a little bit later that we'll have to fight. And any of these arcade games, I always thought those effects were really cool when like somebody would actually hit you or smash you or squish you. And not only would like you get hurt from it, but you would actually see an effect on the character. Like here, when he burns your head gets burned. And now I can honestly tell you, of any boss in this whole game, this rock soldier, in my opinion, has to be the most annoying, because not only does he shoot you with that gun that stops you in your tracks, but he just keeps on pistol whipping you. And unlike any bosses where you can get like a few good hits in if you wanted to hit them, you can only get 1 or 2 hits in before he will either pistol whip you, knock you to the ground, or he will burn your head. And I could imagine back in the day, this was probably a pretty annoying boss battle when you were trying to just get through this game with all your actual real quarters, and not the virtual kind that are just press of a button. And consider that Splinter's a ninja, and there's only like a little bit of rope over his midsection, it's just kind of surprising that he can't somehow claw his way out. You see how his mouth can almost touch the things? You'd think that, like, being a rat, he could just like chew through the ropes and then like help Donatello here, who's viciously getting beaten by this weird rock man, who of course is nothing like the Thing from Marvel Comics. Or was that DC? I don't know, I'm not really a big comics fan. I'm sure I'll probably get like 20,000 corrections in the comments. Well, 12 people who actually watched this second part of my video here. And that's another thing that was weird, is like he explodes. What's in him that makes him explode?
Thank you, my turtle.
And that's another question. Where exactly was Splinter there? He was just like in this weird like yellow place. Why did the whole background turn yellow? Is that the kind of wallpaper that they use? And finally, here's the Technodrome, and the funny part is when I was young, I knew nothing about techno music, so I just thought Technodrome was the coolest thing, and like, when you tell anybody who knew about techno music about Technodrome, it's like, oh, did they play like techno music there? I was like, oh, what's that? Because, you know, you were like a little kid, you didn't know about all these things, and back then, internet was kind of just a thought of the future, and like, there was like dial-up, connections and stuff, but there wasn't really any unified structure back in the 80s and 90s. It was just kind of like Usenet and news groups and stuff like that, and some message boards you could log on to. It was considered really revolutionary at the time, but yeah, nowadays you'd be like, wow, that is so like primitive. And here's another one of those things that'll actually mutate you, the ray. If you got electrocuted by that ray that I was just trying to avoid back then, it would zap me. And of course we got a couple more spearmen here. And a couple more of those robot things. Which I recall right in the Nintendo version, there actually was a trick where you could be right by the wall, and if you kept on hitting them, they would just, they would not have enough time to recover, and you could easily defeat them. And here's more of these character effects things where they will freeze you. And of course there was the frying of our poor Ninja Turtle here. And of course the elevator is a staple of the side-scrolling beat-em-up game. There's a lot of games which will do this, and I've even had some light gun shooting games that will do the same, and what'll happen is that the elevator will stop, somebody will pull the elevator open, then you have to use your light gun and shoot them. And that's another thing that really annoys me with a lot of these beat-em-up games is you'll be playing a one-player game and all the enemies will just gang rape you all at the same time. Like, I'm fighting like 5 guys here. And of course, as we all know, those robots don't die with like 1 hit, they die with like 4 or 5 hits. So it just makes it a little bit harder. And I know I've seen footage of this played with multiple players, and like, instead of being like 2 foot soldiers to come out in some scenes, it'll be like 8. They'll multiply them by number of players, so... Because it would just be kind of dumb if you had like these 5 enemies here and you had 4 characters and you just like destroyed them in literally 2 minutes. It would be a little bit lame. Let's take care of this last Robo Guard here. And as I was mentioning earlier, as I was saying, there's 2 rock soldiers. Here's our second one. Now, the good part about him is most of the time he's actually cocking his gun, so he's not really hitting you nearly as much as the other one was, but he will get his hit in every once in a while. But the good part about it is it's a little bit easier to dodge, so it's not nearly as annoying as the other one. And whenever I see this guy, I always think that he has like 1 green nipple, because that's what it looks like. But I'm thinking that's supposed to be something to do with his rank in the Rock Soldier Army or something. But what really got annoying when I was doing this battle, you'll notice it happens to me a few times that that door, the electronic bars just seem to keep on disappearing, and if you get by them even when they're not visible, you'll still get shocked, which is just weird. And I always think to myself, why do they disappear? It's just kind of like it's teasing. It's like, oh, you could just leave now. Look. And then you try to leave and you get zapped. And I always thought that was a good idea in some of these earlier games that you get like flashing or something to indicate that the enemy was weakening. And then we had like later games that you'd play, like more 3D games, and instead of doing like something like flashing, the enemy would like visibly weaken. He would kind of like fall to the ground and stuff. Now he's like completely gold, so he's like on his way completely out, so he's almost dead. But as you can see, compared to the other Rock Soldier, this one's gone a little bit quicker than the other one. And there he goes. Once again exploding because they have dynamite in them. And of course, for no reason in particular, destroying the Rock Soldier opened the electrifying gate. So I guess Krang should like think a little bit more and make his things that stop the Ninja Turtles a little bit stronger, so they don't just turn off if his guy is defeated. And this is another song in this game that I honestly really like. Because I can remember when I was young, I forget if it was the NES version or this one, but when it went into long attract mode, now that I think of it, I think it was the NES version. It went into long attract mode. You just see the Krang come out of the warp thing there. I was like, wow, that looks really cool. I really need to do that. And of course, eventually, I was able to get to this stage in the NES version, and it has the same song, and but all like NES-ified. Your classic 8-bit themes. And I remember when I was doing this battle, I kept thinking of James Rolfe's Overanalyzers and how they talked about like Crane and the body, and like what happens with does the body like live, does it die, and everything. I think that's like a great episode of that. And of course, if you've never seen the Overanalyzers, they're over on Cinemassacre.com. They have like 2 series of videos. I think it's like a total of 14 or 15 different videos where they, as the name would suggest, overanalyze a lot of stuff, and it's just like hilarious stuff. So if you've never seen Overanalyzers, definitely head over to Cinemassacre.com. But yeah, here's Krang. He's not all that bad. Like, he'll kick and punch you, and then he'll shoot the lasers. So there's no actual like character effect or freezing thing, but it is kind of annoying when his eye rays hit you. They just knock you over, and when he kicks you, he knocks you over. So not the most enjoyable fight. Kind of a bit annoying, but yeah, it's a game. You're gonna get knocked over, so it's not too bad. And I can understand Krang making that explosion when he dies, but like the Rock Soldiers, unless they were like made out of like nitroglycerin or something, there's no reason why they'd explode. And I thought this was a really cool battle that you'd have like 2 Shredders to fight instead of 1. So it's a really, I thought it was a really cool dynamic that he kind of has his own doppelganger that gets destroyed if you beat on him too much. And the easiest way to tell the real Shredder from the doppelganger is the doppelganger never shoots the 3 chains of lightning out of his hand, whereas the real Shredder will. But sometimes it takes a long while for the real Shredder to shoot the lightning like that, so a lot of times you'll be beating on the doppelganger, and you'll not be destroying the real Shredder. And the good part about that is if the real Shredder dies and the doppelganger is still alive, they actually both die, because it's kind of like the doppelganger is part of Shredder, so the doppelganger dies when real Shredder dies. But as you see, I've killed a few of the doppelgangers during this battle, because I'm always attacking the wrong guy. And it's always good when they stand together. As you see, the real Shredder's helmet came off, and then I killed him, and the doppelganger just died as a result. The Technodrome just had a techno explosion, of course, and now it's totally destroyed. Okay, and it says here, freaked out the Foots, mangled the Mousers, and totaled the Technodrome. That's turtle power. But what about the Shredder and Krang? Burned to toast, vaporized to milkshake, or escape to Dimension X? Until we know, none of us can sleep safely in our beds, shells. I guess they just want to leave it as an open-ended thing, so you wouldn't think, oh, the Ninja Turtles defeated the enemies and now it's all over. But yeah, as I was mentioning in the other video, the Ninja Turtles arcade game is an excellent example of a beat-em-up. This is one of those games that, like, when the designer's making a beat-em-up game, which sadly they just don't do nearly as much anymore today, this should be like a game they should be shown. It should be like, well, you're making a beat-em-up, Ninja Turtles. It's just one of those many games that you're like, this is just like a genre-defining game, and even if you're not a fan of Ninja Turtles and you like beat-em-up games, it's definitely worth trying. And even if you're a fan of like the newer Ninja Turtles, like the revamp, I think it was like 2003, this game is still worth a try because it just has all the charm that a lot of us just simply grew up to love. And it's just one of those games that you're like, ready for some action. Let's play some Ninja Turtles. It's just that game that you really want to play. And yeah, this has been another Game Nexus video, and I will see you in my next video. And here's me doing my name here. But yeah, that's all for now, and I shall see you later. Bye.